Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can see my screen. I'm Pastor Russell from Toledo UBF, and I'm here today to talk to you about how to be safe and not sorry using social media. But this presentation is not only really in regard to social media, but actually it's really relevant to all offline ministry activities as well, especially in regard to the copyright laws, because they also apply both online and offline. So I've divided my presentation into two parts. First, we're going to talk about the various types of license that ministries should have, and also just a few other liability concerns that we should pay attention to. Now, my first disclaimer today is that this presentation is based on United States law. So, unfortunately, I simply cannot know all the laws of every country. So, those of you outside the US will need to do some research on your own. But I would suspect that many of these things are similar. My second disclaimer is that this presentation is not legal in any way. In other words, I am not a legal expert, although I do have some experience with these licenses and these laws through my job in the past. Don't just take my word for everything I say here. You should also do your research. All right, so copyright laws are not only laws created by our government, but this is also God's law, right? Thou shalt not steal. So regrettably, it is so very easy in our culture to download and use copyrighted materials, and I myself am guilty of this. Right? However, we need to do a better job as a ministry. Right? Our chapter, even one chapter not complying with these laws can reflect very badly on all of us. So it's important to be aware of these issues, especially now that we're going online more and we're putting things out there in the public. So first of all, we are going to look at some of the various licenses that we can obtain to help us to be compliant with these laws. And there are four main ones that churches should probably have. And they are a performance license, a copyright license, a streaming license, and a video license. So first, let's talk about performance license. So fortunately, churches are somewhat exempt from certain performance copyright. Now, according to the exemption for churches, the following performances are not infringements of copyright. That is, performances of a non-dramatic music work or of a dramatical music work of a religious nature or display of a work in the course of services at a place of worship or other religious assembly. So like any law, it's a little bit open to interpretation, so we need to understand what this means. Now, if you're a house church or a small ministry, you may not need a performance license. So as long as the things that your ministry is doing are basically happening at your place of worship, you're okay. But it's when you go outside of your regular place of worship that you need to be careful. So for example, if your student group has a special campus event where you play Christian music, or if you have a special retreat or conference outside of your regular place of worship, then you may want to look into a performance license. Also, even at your regular place of worship, there may be instances where you still need a performance license. But that's only in the case where the performance at your church involves secular material. For example, if you have dancers performing to folk music or non-religious music, then you would need a performance license. So to protect yourself, where can you get a performance license? Well, you can get one in the US at christiancopyrightsolutions.com. And these performance licenses are not that cheap. They cost about $235 US per year. Again, the cost depends on the size of your ministry. And I believe that this site also offers one for Canada as well, but you need to check before you purchase. So that's the performance license. All right, the next type of license is a copyright license. Now this one is very, very important. I would strongly recommend every ministry, no matter how small you are, to get a church copyright license. Now, it's also important to understand that the church copyright license only covers Christian music, basically. And it doesn't necessarily cover all Christian music. It may cover 90%, but there unfortunately is no license which covers all Christian copyrighted music. So you still need to be a little careful when you're selecting your songs. So without this license, it is illegal to print copyrighted songs on your printer or copier, right? You cannot print song sheets or lyrics and put them in bulletins or programs or songbooks. You can't just go on the internet, search for song lyrics, and then print them out. So it's actually illegal to do that. You also can't display them on a PowerPoint or overhead projector. So you can't just go to YouTube and find a song or a lyric video and then show it and have everybody sing along to it. So as a church, it is actually illegal to do that without a church copyright license. You also cannot translate songs into another language, or you cannot record songs in any way without this license. So if you have music in your worship service and you're recording the service in any format, you have violated the copyright law without this license. So as you can see, just about all the things we do violate copyright law if you do not have a church copyright license. So that's why this one is very important. And even if you personally don't violate these yourself, but just think about, what about your church members who may just open the hymn book and make a copy of it or something? You can't do that. All right, so where do you get a copyright license from? Well, in the US, you can obtain one from CCLI or onelicense.net. Okay, both of those offer church copyright licenses. So this allows you then to show Christian song lyrics on the screen and print the songs, record them, and do all those things that we normally do. And some of these sites like CCLI, they offer many other additional services as well. One of them is called Song Select, which I like because it has all the song lyrics for you and all the sheet music, all the guitar chords, basically everything that your music director needs, and all they have to do is go to the site and print it out. And you can even tell it what key you want it to be in, and it'll print the music in that key for you. Right? Of course, that's a little more money, but it may be of value to your music director. Now, the downside of the copyright license for churches is that they require you to fill out a report. of the songs basically that you're using. So it's not super difficult. They make it very easy, but you still have to do it at least once a year. You log in and you kind of create a report of the kind of songs that you're using. All right, so next let's talk about using copyrighted images. So this is now not music, but images. So unfortunately, there is no image copyright license that you can get. You simply must never use, print, or display a copyrighted image without permission. It's just as simple as that. And I know at least one UBF chapter found out the hard way when they were sued for using a copyrighted image in a CBF book. So do not just Google an image and then add it to your PowerPoint or to your social media, because it's probably copyrighted. So even if you don't see the copyright symbol next to the image, it doesn't mean it is not copyrighted. Right? The copyright symbol is not required for an owner to claim copyright. Also, even images which are placed under something called Creative Commons or public domain still often require you to give credit to the author before you can use it. Now, the only good news about copyrighted images that you might be using online is that if the copyright holder has a problem with how you use it, then they will contact the social media company and not you. So usually YouTube or Facebook or whatever social media site, they will just remove the image and then send you a warning. Right? If you continually violate it, then they may disable your account. So how can we avoid using copyrighted images, videos, or music? Well, one way, obviously, you could create your own original stuff. But another one is to look for royalty-free or stock services. So YouTube, for example, has free built-in music in your studio. So you can just use that if you like. But there are hundreds and thousands of sites out there you can subscribe to that give you access to tons of non-copyrighted images or music or video clips and so on for you to use. All right, lastly, regarding the topic of copyright, let me also mention briefly about copyrighted text, specifically Bible verses. So you cannot just put a Bible verse in your message or PowerPoint or your bulletin without adhering to copyright law. And each different version of the Bible has different criteria. Now for the NIV, you are allowed to use Bible verses in your messages or presentations as long as you use less than 500 of them, or they are not more than 25% of your work. And also then, somewhere in your message or your PowerPoint or whatever, you need to copy and paste this NIV trademark clause in order to be compliant. Right? Okay, so far we've talked about performance license and copyright license for music, and we've also talked about using images and text. So now let's talk about the third kind of license, and that is a streaming, or sometimes called a broadcast license. So if you intend to live stream or make available your worship service in some format, you need a streaming license. Okay, there's basically no other option. Right, so if your service is going to be on the internet in some form, you need this. So the only case where you would not need it is if you only stream the message And the message has no music, no video, no PowerPoint, and adheres to all other copyright laws. Then you don't need a streaming license, but mostly that's not the case. So it's always better to be safe than sorry, and invest in a streaming license if you are going to be putting things from your church on the internet. Okay, and you can get these again through CCLI or CCS. To me, CCS seems a little more comprehensive. So I like that in terms of the streaming license, but again, do your own research. Just depends on your needs. Okay, lastly, I want to talk about a church video license. So this allows you to show movies, Christian or secular, within your church. So you may not need one of these if you're not showing movies in your church. But some questions really you should ask yourself would be, does your CBF teacher ever show a kids movie, right? Christian or non-Christian, you know, VeggieTales or whatever, it doesn't matter. Or does your student group ever have a movie night? Or does your pastor use a short movie clip sometimes to enhance their message? So if you answered yes to any of these, then again, you should really have a video license. All right, there are even more types of licenses that I did not mention. There's basically about 9 of them. But the ones I didn't mention are probably not ones that are going to apply to UBF Ministries. And so I understand, I just covered a lot of information. It's probably all very confusing, but there is a chart which can help. And basically, this tells you what license you need for each thing that your church may be doing. Okay, so we will make this chart available in a handout. It's called Copyright Facts that we'll be sending to everyone who is attending today. Okay. All right, so just to kind of summarize, there are basically, again, these 4 types of license, and you won't likely be able to get all the license you need just from one site. So CCLI has copyright and streaming license, but they don't offer a performance license, for example. So you may have to kind of mix and match from different sites to get the licenses you need. So for the most part, UBF ministries in the US are going to need the CCLI church copyright license for sure. So really everyone should have that. And it's really not that expensive. It's $64 a year if your ministry has less than 25 people. Right? Now, if your ministry is more than 25 but less than 100, then I would kind of recommend that you probably need all 3 of these licenses: the copyright license, the performance license, and the streaming license if you're going to also be doing streaming. So total approximate cost for all 3 of those is about $590 per year. Okay. All right. So it's very important really for each chapter to be aware of all these legal and liability issues. And also your church insurance company can also provide additional information to you about many of these things. And just one other way to protect yourself that I would like to mention is with permission forms and disclaimers. So especially when it comes to putting any kind of pictures or videos of children of any form on social media or the internet. So before you post anything from your church on the internet, you need to ask yourself, do I have permission to post someone else's photo? Or do I have permission to record someone? So if you don't post it or don't record it. Right? So you can create permission forms for your congregation to sign to protect you against this. And also just try to use some kind of disclaimer whenever possible. So for example, let's say your church is doing worship online via Zoom. So, and you want to record that. You should probably have a disclaimer. Now, some things like Zoom and other services will let you know when you are being recorded, but still you should not assume people know if they are being recorded. So for example, you can send an email saying, hey, you're invited to join our online worship service via Zoom at this link, but then you should say, this worship service will be recorded. By joining, you automatically consent to it being recorded. If you did not consent to being recorded, discuss your concerns with the host or do not join. Okay. All right. And then also here's another example of a consent or an example of a consent form, and also we will send this in the materials that we send to everyone, so you can edit this and adjust it if you like for your own needs and your own ministry. Just kind of a template. All right, well, that's my time today. The bottom line is basically protect yourself and your ministry. Be safe and not sorry. Thank you very much.